It's got to make you smile, really. I'm sitting here thinking back to the 2012 election when Democrats took control of the legislature to work with Governor Dayton. The state had no cash flow account, it was zero. The state had no budget reserve. We owed our schools about $2 billion. And Paul Thiessen and I and our caucuses took over the legislature. And we worked closely with the governor, and we raised some revenue on the top 2% of wage earners. And over my kind of objections, cigarettes, regressive tax, but we did it. And we stabilized the state budget. And I'm pretty proud of that work. And what I'm kind of smiling about is I can remember Senator Han and his colleagues on the floor of the Senate crying chicken little that the sky is falling and these tax increases are going to just collapse any economic growth that the state's going to have. That clearly was not true. This state is an incredibly well-run state. Governor Dayton's done a remarkable job. And let me just say, before you print the governor's 10% budget increase, do the math, right? You can make numbers say anything you want to say, but if the governor had a 10% increase in his budget, the current budget's about $43 billion, his budget proposal would have had to have been $4.3 billion increase. That's just not true. It's closer to 3%. So I think that kind of rhetoric is going to create problems going down the road if we're not going to be honest about each other's proposals. So I don't want to use the word warn or the word caution. Just let me say, I would like people to exercise some restraint as we go forward. And if I was king, this $250 million, I'd put it back into the budget reserve because we've taken $326 million from there this session. It's real easy to spend money. See all the green votes for that? Real easy. But with the instability, I think that we see in Washington, D.C., I do think we should park this and this is just me, I haven't talked to Senator Cohen or anybody about this. I think we ought to park that $250 million and try backfill the money that we took out of the budget reserve earlier this session, because there is some uncertainty that begs for some restraint on our part.
It's good news today that we're getting from the new budget forecast. Minnesota's economy is strong and stable, and it's important that this provides an opportunity and a responsibility for us to continue to invest in all Minnesotans and those things that made the budget strong and stable in the first place. And I think at the end of this biennium, we need to look both at the numbers on the spreadsheet, but also the condition of the assets of the state. Our roads and bridges, can we improve those? We should improve those. We have the responsibility and the opportunity to do that as a result of this forecast. Will college be more affordable at the end of 2 years than it is right now? College is too expensive for many families. And there still are families who are having a hard time finding good jobs with good benefits. So I think we have to look at the numbers on the spreadsheet, but it's really important to remember that when Minnesotans are driving down the highway and we haven't taken care of the roads and bridges the way we need to, or they're paying more for higher education than they can afford, that's a reflection on the quality of life in Minnesota as much as the dollars on the bottom line. So it's a great forecast. It reflects a strong and stable economy, but we should take the opportunity to reinvest in all Minnesotans.
I might make a couple of quick comments. I was one that has chaired budget committees for many years in the Minnesota legislature. And I've always advocated for a balanced approach to state government. But a couple of things that I thought should be pointed out, considering some of the comments that were made previously. The cost of government is actually going down. In fact, we're going to have a hearing on the House side on that very question coming up. So when you're hearing some of the rhetoric about state spending, keep in mind that relative to personal income, the cost of government is going down, and my good friend Senator Ann Rest, I think, was the original author of the bill, so that we could have some benchmarks to see how we were doing. I do want to comment on the importance of the reserve. A number of years ago, I was served on a Blue Ribbon Commission for the University of Minnesota, and the whole debate was what kind of a budget reserve should the university have? And I became a strong believer in maintaining, in the case of the university, a strong budget reserve, but for the state of Minnesota as well, because we know that our economy is cyclical. And one way that we can plan for the future is to have a good budget reserve, as Senator Bakk just pointed out, where we were just a few years ago when Governor Dayton came into office and we had the majority in both the House and the Senate. Good fiscal planning is what put us in the positive position we are in today. And I would hope as you review the budget, write your stories, you'll keep that good news in terms of how we've positioned ourselves moving into the future. Thank you.
Any questions? Otherwise, I have a triple RB meeting to get to.
Senator Bakk, as you look at, trying to park that $250 million that you discussed, what worries you most about changes at the federal level that you feel the state may need to prepare for?
I think potentially what they do with healthcare, the repeal of the Affordable Care Act that I guess they voted for 100 times while President Obama was in office. They can't seem to get a vote for now that they're in control. But potentially, I think much of that burden of providing health care could end up shifted back to the states at tremendous cost. And, Minnesota didn't get as much out of the Affordable Care Act as a lot of states did because we were already doing a very, very good job of providing health care for our citizens. But I think that's where the largest risk looms.
Let me just supplement Tom's answer. I would suggest to everybody, you take a look at the budget book and look at page 24, Council of Economic Advisors statement, and you'll have detailed there some of the concerns that the council has. And keep in mind, the council is comprised of 9 economists, a combination of public-private academic. It's a combination of ideologies, and they look at this with on a pretty dispassionate basis. But I would suggest to fully answer the question, take a look at their statement, and you'll understand what concerns there are relative to where not just Minnesota but the country might be going and the impact that's going to have on the budget. So read those several pages.
Thank you, everybody.